Good
Hey,
morning.
good morning. Oh my
We're back
gosh,
at it
happy
again.
day. We
We were
did
just
it.
talking about this week. You were saying for both of us, you've been running. We did that. We were in how do you say, a commercial for Miracles
Yes, absolutely.
Monday. That was really cute.
That was a lot
They're,
of
they're doing
fun.
a really good thing over there.
They are. It's
Um,
been a great week, but busy for both of us. I'm wearing my glasses today, so yes, see, there I am.
you look
Just so I
very, very
can
beautiful.
see you and see me. There we go.
And they match your shirt. We're doing
Oh
it.
my gosh, we are silent early morning. I love it.
We
Excellent.
were both talking about, I sound pretty sick. Thank God you've been staying out of it. Just Texas allergies, man. Every tree in the world is
Yeah,
not our friend.
I know. It's so
But
true.
let's hop right into it, y'all. Welcome to the Wolf and the Bear podcast. We are a spiritual podcast starring psychic medium and channel Terri Groom, and me as your host, Sophia Sterling. We aim to bring real spiritual knowledge and education and our little stories, actually, as it turns out to be, all just about this lifestyle and about what we think spirituality, the potentials of it that it can be, and the things that it is, and we channel that straight from the source or straight from our own personal experiences. So we really, really just enjoy meeting every week and getting to gab and also covering topics that we think, maybe deserve a little bit of light shed on them. So
Absolutely. Hold on
back at it
one
again.
second. Hold on one sec. I've got to turn the volume off on my other computer
Oh, of
because
course.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that.
No. You are perfect.
See, this is one of those pause moments we talked about.
Yeah. Well, what's great though is while you're doing that last week, so I got so excited. I've been telling everybody who I know personally that joins in with us on the pod, oh my gosh, we're going to talk about animals today.
Love it.
And you are actually, you're the first person, obviously, that I've ever really known who I would say is just gifted to high heaven, right? And
Oh,
so,
you're so sweet.
well, it's just true. You know what I mean? Like everybody can say something, but it's very different to know someone personally and to then also hear what I think about spirituality is it oftentimes brings magic. Like there's this magical quality of like, I didn't know this was possible. Then, my left brain says, is it possible? So then when the facts check out and then I'm like, oh my gosh, this is real. And then it just adds this element of, oh my gosh, this is just beautiful. And I remember the first time that I felt that way about the topic of animals was, I believe I was, so in the lineups where, for people who don't know, when we do the psychic fairs, it's in some ways sort of a service to community in that it's a much reduced rate to get to kind of sit with us. And so we just all line up and we're available. And it's really, really amazing. And if I don't ever have a client, I typically sit in front of you in like
Yes.
the room. And so I pull one of my earphones, my pods out, and I just kind of listen if it's interesting because I love hearing you work. So then all of a sudden I'm walking by and this individual walks by and I like double look because this individual has like an animal with her, which I didn't know was allowed. And I was just enchanted because we love animals. And then for the next 30 minutes, this dog rats out her owner on just about
They usually
everything.
do.
And I could tell that there was a little bit of like, oh, this is a lot of my business on the table from your client too. So I knew that this wasn't, there was a legitimate transfer of logical knowledge and information from a sentient energy from the dog.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I was just enchanted. Now, I know that you teach personally animal communication courses and classes and weekends, I believe.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that was never a thing that you and I worked on in class because it was more about speaking of my babies. If you're watching this on YouTube or the audio,
They're right
visual,
behind. Oh, I love that.
they're always around.
Hey, babies.
But you've said to me before, and I promise I'm going to stop talking soon, but you've said to me before that for smaller dogs and cats, there's a consciousness around 3 and 4. And then
about 2 and 3, yes.
Oh, 2 and 3, okay.
Yes.
And then I had seen through other media, not mediums, got to be careful in these parts, medias, different,
Right.
and there was a gentleman who worked with large dogs, and he articulated that sometimes the larger the dog, the deeper the I guess like the age. I don't know. I'm curious what you think about that. And the other thing I wanted to bring up was there was a woman that I saw that I felt authenticity from when I watched, and she was actually helping aid a large panther to find more
Absolutely.
peace within, and that
Yes.
was, she argued that that was actually a very ancient and dignified energy.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
just sort of the things that I guess I'm such a nerd. I'm just curious about. Please share your depth of wisdom here because I just love this component of what you do.
Oh, well, thank you so much. First and foremost, good morning, everybody. We've got so much to talk about with animals. I love this subject. It's one of my favorites. We're going to hit the ground running as we usually do. Between the sniffles and the dark circles under our eyes from a lot of work, we're having fun. The animal kingdom is remarkable, and you're right. There's many different age groups based on the animals that we are working with. Oftentimes we get the domesticated animals, we get the kitty cats, we get the rabbits. I just had a wonderful conversation with the bunny the other day. We talked to pups, dogs, all ages, and so we see a lot of domestic animals. And so we do recognize that in the average visit, the average, reading, animal communication reading, we're looking at the age group of about 2 to 3 as far as what they're going to share openly. One thing that I want to from the get-go kind of mention to you is that a lot of what we do is through telepathy with animals. It is a communication pattern, but we have to know some basics before we really get involved with understanding and helping these wonderful creatures. The first and foremost part of this is we've got to understand that animals typically are instinctual. Now, not every animal will exhibit the traits of their kind, their breed, because trauma plays a role, upbringing, lack thereof plays a role in the way that they behave as a natural behavior. But we do have to keep that in mind. And so if anyone is interested in working with animals, I'm a strong believer that you need to have a basic understanding of what the behavioral patterns are in the first place. If you're working with horses and they've been domesticated, you've got to know what the pounding of the hoofs mean, what the whinnying means. You've got to understand what it means when a dog has a high pitched bark versus a low growl. The different types of behavior. We recognize that all animals fit into a generalized category based on their behaviors and through instincts. So that's kind of like something you start with so that you can go ahead and make the most of your communication. If I'm working with a cat and the cat is very timid and the tail's tucked under its leg, well, I already know that we've got to work from a point of view that this cat is fearful. So I would be more gentle in my words. My tone would go a little bit softer. I would communicate on a level that wouldn't be traumatizing or threatening to the particular animal. And we see that across the board. Communication, we do it with humans. We do it with our friends. We do it with colleagues, friends, strangers, whomever it may be. We kind of mirror their energy level. So if you walk into say, for instance, a place where it's very, quiet, you're walking into a library, for instance, I'm not going to go in there and start hooting and hollering and jumping on the floor, clapping like a cheerleader, because it's not acceptable. Well, if you can take that and translate that to how to behave with animals, you'll recognize that there's some rules to the game as well. I'm not going to go in and stare down a dog as I'm trying to figure out why he's not eating. Okay, because then I become a threatening source. Then I become a vet to that dog. Then I become someone who to be fearful of. So we recognize that we've got to have a little bit of a foundation before we start getting into the real techniques of working with animals. So if we were doing a step-by-step, I would say, okay, now your first assignment, if you want to learn more about this, is to get an overview of what your animals do naturally if they are not in a trauma state, that they would naturally do. And so once we get to that point, then we can work forward. It's an amazing field. And you know what? You're going to hear me talk so much this morning that you're going to grow tired of me. So
I love it.
Whenever you get tired of it, all you have to do is hit the I will not record button, and we'll go from there, right?
I do want to ask a question that you kind of hit on just there when you said, so when there is when we kind of base down the consciousness of these animals and we're not used to, at least not consciously, our own instincts, right?
Right.
So maybe we don't factor it. So how, if you think about like a layer, like an
Mhm.
M&M, right? Layers down into an energy of an animal. And
Right.
you mentioned the telepathy, and you mentioned that, no matter what, it's just like when we talk about spirit and spirit, when someone passes, they have to spend time learning the language of energy.
Yes.
There, that must also be true kind of when it comes into connecting with an animal when they're probably not really used to being communicated that way.
True.
Or is that really how they communicate with each other? Do they have a more telepathic relationship than we understand?
Well, they do, and I'm a firm believer that they do have their own relationship of communication through body language, through instinctual behaviors, just a telepathic contact, connection. And so we realize that they have a way of communicating amongst themselves. There must be a way for them to communicate to us. Now we
Mm-hmm.
recognize, for instance, a good example. We all are very familiar with the domesticated kitty cat. Um, Cats don't really talk to each other by meowing. That's not really
Mm-hmm.
necessary. In fact, when they start meowing at each other, you need to be very careful because that means that they're trying to get the other to get out of the way. So we
Oh.
recognize that most cats aren't going to meow back and forth to each other because that's not a natural instinctual behavior. So if I was to see that, I would realize that there is a bit of a commotion between the two of them, and the energy is likely to be chaotic. So I need to dig deeper as to what's going on. We know that cats mimic us. We talk to them, they meow, and we're so excited because we're thinking, wow, they're really translating this conversation into the meows and their terms and their ways. But when actuality, they're thinking, well, this is the only way the humans really, really appreciate me because we always smile and go wee when they answer
Oh.
us. So
Oh my
it's
goodness, yeah.
it's an effective behavior. So again, cats don't really need to meow to get their point across to their own kind, but they've learned to adapt to humans,
Mm-hmm.
and they've learned to communicate their needs because again, they're very instinctual. The cat wants to be loved. The cat wants to be fed. Wants to play. There's a lot of basic needs, and so again, it's a resource for these wonderful animals to find methods in communication with humans. So the answer to your question on the long way around it was they do have a communication amongst themselves that's not always translated into vocals, but more actions. And with humans, we tend to, just on the surface, we tend to be very vocal. And that's
Mm-hmm.
okay too. Most animals are not going to understand full sentences.
Mm.
Some animals can be trained. We see a lot of collies, for instance, or working dogs. Their vocabulary is usually on a 3 to 4 year old. So
Mm-hmm.
I can say things to a working dog that I wouldn't typically ask or say to another animal, um,
Okay.
just because I know that the level of understanding is heightened. Now, now that doesn't mean the rest of the pups are not bright. It's just, again, if you're going to speak and communicate with animals, you need to know a little bit about what animals are. So in other
Mm-hmm.
words, if I was a guest speaker at a luncheon, say for instance, I better know what the topic is and I better know who my audience is. Do you
Mm-hmm.
see?
Oh, absolutely.
And so if my best work is when I have a little bit of a knowledge of what that particular species requires.
In the case where you're working, when we think about, let me start with, I guess, animals obviously have independent souls and
Yes.
independent experiences of life, right?
Yes.
In ancient Hindu, and I don't really know, I guess, current, right? But there was a belief system where that it was essentially a transgression, not a transgression, sorry, um, that animals could be humans and vice versa. And it seems collectively in our community to be considered true that that is not the case, that
Right.
animals will always be within their own cycles, experiencing life in this physical plane for their own reasons, us doing our own thing as well.
And again, we lead with love and wisdom second. I agree with that belief system. I know there's going to be several people in the audience and viewers that will disagree because I know several people that intend to come back as an animal rather than as a
Oh,
human.
oh, interesting. Okay.
Yes. Now,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
can they do that? Well, that's up to them as far as I'm concerned. Uh, I have no problem with that. The fact of the matter is, intellectually, we know that that seems a little bit far-fetched to say that based on an intellectual base, a bit side, right? I mean, it just makes sense that we're going to come back human and animals are going to come back as another species or their own species once more.
And if there is a way to do that, because I do believe, like, call it angels, call you what, but I do believe that
Right.
there's an organization to the other side.
Yes,
So
I
if
agree
there's
with
a
that.
pathway to that, and I'm sure there is, because free will is a crazy thing, then it's just outside of what is considered the normative parameters.
Absolutely.
And so
Yeah,
that's like all
well
we know,
stated.
like we don't
That's
know the full answer, but we know, traditionally speaking, when it comes to the job of the soul, if we're here for, what we consider the majority of us here, which is we're logging data on our soul, right? Like information on a
absolutely.
hard drive, then those experiences have a tendency, well, so far as we've seen, they're always human to human
Yes.
to human to human. So, but I did read this, and I don't know if this is accurate. I'm curious what you think. But this was written in a book that was, I believe, regarding soul regression or near death experiences. I think maybe
Okay.
both of those topics were in the book.
Okay.
And when he writes about that, there are specialized energies that are, we've talked about spirit guides being kind of a job on the other side, other
Right.
jobs that are available that don't require interacting with us so much. But
Mhm.
one of them, he said, was that there were energies called something like trackers or something, and they basically had the special attunement to animal energy. So they would actually you would go find them if you were in spirit missing an animal.
Mhm.
And the rules just being that could only be true if it benefited both. Like, you couldn't go seek out a whale that you never met or a
Right,
lion.
exactly. Can't be an
Now,
opportunist with it, right?
right, right. Now, does that seem, what are your thoughts on that idea that there are people that can, on the other side, of course, that sort of can reunite you with spirit, because we understand that those afterlives are not always conjoined either.
Well, and that's a good point because there's a little bit of all the different belief systems that I connect to. I'm going to say yes, I do believe there would be a tracker of sorts that would be enlisted in helping bring families together with their pets. I do
Mm.
feel that. I do feel that the
Mm-hmm.
soul of an animal
Oh.
um, moves on, transitions like humans. I truly believe that. Some people believe they don't, and again, I'm not here to argue that belief system. I'm just here to give a secondary opinion. So in my work, I do believe there's trackers that would help,
Mm-hmm.
that would be able to engage in looking and locating the pet for the loved one that is now over on the other side with the pet. I also see oftentimes in a lot of my readings where the family members have already received the pet. The pet has come to them in the spirit world. So the tracker can also be a family member that has them. I do
Oh,
see that
wow.
often. I recently
I
had a
just got
client.
goosebumps.
Oh, I know, I love it. It makes me smile.
Yeah,
Um,
me
I
too.
I recently had a client who had a dear friend that was on the other side. Well, it just so happened that this dear friend left about 2 weeks after, or excuse me, 2 weeks before um, her pet passed.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
she was devastated, and we didn't go
That's
into
a
a
lot of
lot of
loss.
it is a lot of loss. And we didn't go into much of the explanation of the species of the pet, the type of pet. But she said that, she had lost not only her pet, but she had lost her dear friend. And it was a very difficult time for her. So I was able to connect to her friend, a really nice guy on the other side. And I said that, it's very interesting to me because he wants me to see what he's got. And he's got this animal by his feet, and he wants me to know what it is so that I can share it with you. And
Mm.
I said, by gosh, it looks like a pig. I said, this looks like a small pig. And she immediately started crying. She said, oh my God, that's my pig. That's my pet pig. And
Oh my
again, no
God.
judgment. I don't care
Yeah,
if your
no.
pet is a snail. It's your pet, and I know you love the pet. And so she was just taken back by the fact that he had shown me that there was a pig there, and he was in charge of it. So that gave me more feedback, gave me more validation that there is a way of unifying, connecting, and bringing forward loved ones, regardless of the species on the other side. Oftentimes, I'll have a loved one that'll have a cat in their lap when they're talking to me, or a dog. And when I describe the dog, I find out that this is one of the family pets. So it's fascinating how this connection occurs. I mean, we can follow the trail all the way until, until basically we're in spirit, which I'm not going to really go right now and be. Okay.
Right.
I'm hoping for a little bit
Well,
more
you
in my
did post about
timeline.
your old rabbit, so this would be the time.
Well, that's right. I'm hoping to connect to Spartacus,
Spartacus, that's the
my
greatest
fierce
name.
little, very fierce little itty bitty, lop-eared bunny rabbit.
Oh,
But we do recognize that there are trackers, as you call them. There are those individuals, there's family members that do have the ability to be reunited on behalf of the family or for their own pet. I had a client one time. She had lost her husband, and they had a border collie around the same time as a family pet, and the border collie had passed on about a year after. And so she reached out to me. She wanted to talk to her husband. She was um, having some emotional trauma because the anniversary date was coming around the bend and she wanted to visit. So we talked and I said, well, he just wants you to know that he's still playing ball. And I, again, using intellect, which we try not to do, I'm thinking baseball, he's over there shooting hoops or something. And so I didn't know where he was going with this, but he wanted her to know I'm still playing ball. And so is Buddy. And I thought, okay, well, so in my head, he's got a loved one over there and they're playing basketball or baseball. And she just burst into tears. She said, oh my gosh, Buddy's my border collie. They used to play catch all the time. That was their favorite thing to do.
oh.
So he had Buddy. He had the dog. The dog had crossed over with him, at different times, of course, but it was now in the spiritual realm. And so we see it time and time again that people are connected with their pets, however it may be, they do have them in the spirit world. Uh, and I have many clients that'll say, well, what about the transition? What if they incarnate? What's happening then? Well, and that's a good question. And we're going to jump into that for a moment, and then we'll go back into, oftentimes what I am told is that an animal is likely to incarnate sooner than a human soul. So if we have a beloved dog on the other side, and I've seen this in action a few times, and the dog passes, it seems like it takes about 2 to 4 years before we have an opportunity of potentially finding our animal, our cat, our dog, our four-legged loved one, or whomever it may be, a bird even, come back. And what we see is the behavioral patterns. So that's when we say we lost a beloved dog, and 4 years later, someone is talking to me or talking to another animal communicator. We may be able to see that this animal is incarnated, and so we would give advice as, okay, this is what we're going to look for. I'm being told that your beloved dog is coming back, much in the same breed. You'll see the personality, you'll see similar instances of action. The behavior will kind of mirror. You won't need to do a lot of training. This dog will already have a lot of instincts that have already been ingrained. So I've had actually recently, and someone reached out and said, oh my gosh, Terri, it took me about 3 months, but I did find my dog again. She had lost a boxer. And boxers are not a real common breed anymore. They're a little bit more hard to find.
Remind me, in our boxers, the little wieners?
No, they're bigger dogs. They've got the square jawline. They're beautiful animals.
Oh, they're kind of, I think I might know in my head.
They're a little bit bigger. I think you're talking about bulldogs, but the bulldogs are the little pudgy ones.
Oh, I was thinking a wiener dog. A dachshund.
Well, a wiener dog.
My bad. Okay,
yeah,
my bad. No. Okay, anyway, sorry.
No, that's okay. Hey, that's okay. No
Down on my
problem. Totally get it. And so she had actually found this dog at a shelter. She said when she walked in the shelter, she just, because usually it's a long corridor and they're all in these horrible metal cages with cement, grates. There's grates and cement flooring. And this dog immediately came to the bars and just sat down in the same way that her boxer used to. Would sit down like one step at a time, like moving the paws out, and just sat sideways and looked and started giving that little bit of a whine, but did not react like the other dogs or anything. So she started paying attention. She said, it's just too good to be true. So I stared at this dog for a long time. And this dog was looking at me like, you know me, what's your problem? Why am I still in this cage?
Oh my gosh.
So she ended up adopting this dog. And she said it was the wildest thing because the dog walked in the house and went straight to where my dog had slept all the time.
Oh
That was
my
his favorite place
gosh.
to sleep. She said it was as if my baby had been reborn. I said, well, in a lot of ways, that's true. So
Well, this
we
kind of
see
stresses
that.
me out because I guess it's like, all right, so then, I mean, are we supposed to wait for that moment? Or like, is there, you know what I mean? Like, what if you miss them?
Well, and that's the other part of this. Again, everything, and what we do can be a slippery slope. I'm never going to tell a client to wait. My
Right.
intention with anyone with dealing with animal loss, animal trauma, I'm going to say, listen, there are so many beloved animals out there, so many wonderful pets waiting for you to love them. That if you're going to wait 4 years or so to find potentially, hopefully find your beloved pet again, you're really missing out, and so is a lot of other dogs or cats.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't recommend that someone wait. Now, if I feel that they are in this process of they're ready, this has been a while, then I will say to my client, it's okay to go looking now. Now I
Mm-hmm.
can't 100% predict. I wish I could. I mean, I'd be a million zillionaire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every animal that's incarnated once more, because again, that's not in our wheelhouse. We're not in spirit yet. So uh, we recognize that we can get a kind of a feel for that. But more often than not, if you've lost a pet recently, grieve, mourn, keep something of this pet. This pet will find its way home. If it's in spirit, it will find a way to get back to you.
No.
I always recommend you keep the bedding and you keep the collar. The collar is a very intimate piece of equipment. If you have a pup or a cat that wears a collar, that collar is right there on their throat chakra. They're trying to find you. It's very important for you to keep that. Don't put everything away and pretend it didn't happen. You're still grieving, you're still mourning, and you need that to mourn. But your animal and spirit also needs to oftentimes come back and see you again one more
Oh
time,
my
at least one
God.
more time. So it's
I keep thinking about a coworker of mine. She just lost her dog of 12 and a half years.
oh, that's so hard.
I know, and it just makes me focus on that. You know, it's so scary. Oh, it's so scary. We love these. You know, they're
But
really
they're
transmute a
family.
lot of energy with and for us. It's crazy.
Well, and they really do. And anyone who doesn't really care for animals, I really am a firm believer that haven't spent time with animals, because they just grow on you. No matter what species, they grow on you. I mean, who would have thought that I would be taking my cats out for ice cream?
I'm
Really, who would
so
have thought? You know,
the way you are with your cats is amazing. I
well,
love it.
and again, I'm not necessarily the crazy cat lady, but I'm definitely a mom, and I look at
Mm-hmm.
them as my kids, and I hope that all pet owners, you do have a responsibility. I want to put that little nugget in there. Be
Mm-hmm.
kind, be loving with your pets. You are basically the caregiver, the care groundskeeper of the animal kingdom, and you have a responsibility to uphold that, to do the right thing. So that's my nugget there. A couple things I want to talk about as far as
Mm-hmm.
behavior. That's very interesting when I see as we get back into the animal communication aspect of things. The behavior is just it's so heartwarming, because these animals, they start communicating on the level of understanding. So for a cat and a dog, they typically will communicate, and some of it starts as kind of, let me see where they're at. Okay, they're walking towards me, they're getting curious, they're going to communicate, they want to communicate. Or if I don't even have them near me in a room, if I have a picture, I will look at the picture and say, okay, sweetie, come a little closer, let me talk to you. So
Can they listen?
I'm envisioning them even in the picture coming a little closer, so I can
Mm-hmm.
get a better understanding of their needs. Animals are very they're they're funny, really. They tattle on their owners. They tattle all the time. And I find it endearing, because I can't tell you how many times I've had especially dogs. They'll immediately, it's so
Because they're
funny.
snitches. Cats
They are
won't tell.
snitches. They are such snitches. They'll say things like, I don't like peas. I don't like peas. I don't like peas. No more
And that'll be in
peas.
the food.
It'll be in the food. And
Oh my goodness.
I'll say
And
to
the
the
owner's
owner,
like, I'm paying $8 million for these pea ridden dog food.
Exactly. That's right. That I keep in the refrigerator alongside mine,
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And or they'll say no more carrots. I had one dog. It's so funny.
that's
Um,
so
the, the this one dog said no more, and I kept saying, "Okay, I need to know what no more.
funny.
What's a no more?
His
Show me
soul
the
is
no more."
hurting.
Yeah. And I'm like, "Show me a no more. I don't know what a no more is." And I kept seeing like what was so funny because it was a dog, and I kept seeing a rabbit pulling carrots out of the ground. And I thought, okay, I'm really confused. Are you afraid of rabbits? Is there a rabbit around you?
How does the
It
dog
was
know that rabbits eat carrots?
I have no idea. So sometimes it gets a little bizarre.
That's
So, and I'm like, okay, there's now I got a dog in here with me, and I did have this dog in front of me, and he's showing me a rabbit pulling carrots out of the ground, and I'm thinking, what the heck is that about? So finally, when I no more, and I finally said, okay, tell me, and I stepped out of my energy as we learn to do. I'm going to completely step away, so there's no judgment, there's no analyzing, and I heard no more carrots. So I looked at the lady, and she just was horrified, and I said said no more carrots, and she said, why not? Like that. I said, oh, okay, well, here we go. I said, because he doesn't like them
now
anymore.
it's couples therapy.
Yes,
She's offended.
exactly. She's offended. And she said, well, I've only been giving him carrots because I'm trying to trim him down. No, and he said again, no more. So I asked her how many carrots she'd been giving him. And I'm
No.
surprised this poor beloved dog wasn't like really pooping out orange, because this dog was eating a full carrot every day, and he weighed about 8 pounds. So, so that's a lot of carrots
And
for a dog.
what's so funny is, I can see it in my mind's eye. If you offer table food, dogs will typically just keep, So
Yes.
bless his heart, he's probably like, I got it, I guess.
And it's so funny because what was so funny is I also recently had another dog that said no more carrots. And I thought, is this a trend? And I asked her, and she was one of my regulars. I said, are you giving carrots to her? And she said, why? I said, because she doesn't like them.
Oh my
She said, but
goodness.
she needs to eat them because she's getting too many treats. So I'm giving her carrots as a treat. I said, those aren't treats, at least not to this pup.
They feel like obligations.
Obligations.
Oh,
So they do
wow.
tattletale. They'll tattletale on food. That's a big one. The food, they'll tattletale if their companion at home, if there's another species or another, dog or cat, their species, they'll let me know how they get along.
Oh, interesting.
It's and again, they don't think of it this way, for the viewers and listeners. It's not like they're going, okay, Terri, come over here. I want to show you my bowl. There's some carrots in here, and I would like them to disappear. They're more like, no more. They're like a little child. No, I don't like. I have one golden moment, and I love to say this, and hopefully this sweet lady is not one of our viewers or listeners. But it was the funniest
We
thing.
keep it real.
We keep it real, folks. This was the funniest thing. It was early on in my beginning years of working with animals, and this little dog. It was a cross between a Shih Tzu and something else. It was just little teeny. It was about the size of a adult Chihuahua. It was just so cute and so small. And the dog was right with me. We took it out of the carrier, and because it came into the store. And it was just looking at me, and I'm like, hi, sweetie, how are you? And the dog was just kind of doing this and doing this. I said, what do you have to say? And the dog, this was funny. The dog yawned at first. I thought, oh, okay, you're bored. Okay, I'll never forget this. And the dog just kind of looked at me, and his eyes got like bigger. And I could tell he was connecting, that I was connecting to this dog. So first thing I heard, and it was the funniest thing, and I may have already told you individually, Sterling, but this is so classic of what we do. And I heard, I don't like chewy things.
No, I don't think this is a thing you've shared.
And I went, okay. And then I heard it again, I don't like chewy things. And then I said, okay, let's talk about food. I don't like chewy things. Okay. But what about balls? And, I was trying to find something to kind of pull this dog away from, because it felt a little hyper focused on, I don't like chewy things. And so I had said it about 3 or 4 times without looking at the pet owner. I didn't look at her. I was communicating with the dog. Sometimes I forget the client is there because they're not the person I'm working with.
You have a job to do.
I have a job to do. And so I finally looked at this woman, and she had her arms folded across her chest, and she was angry. And I looked at her and I said, so I've got to figure out what chewy things are, because Chewy, I'm hearing that it doesn't like chewy things. And she said, fine. And I said, are you okay? She said, no, I'm not really. I said, well, what's wrong? She goes, his name is Chewy.
Oh no. I mean, it makes sense.
I was so surprised, because this
Oh
pup was telling
wow.
me, it was really priceless. This dog was telling me his name, okay, and saying that didn't like chewy things, didn't like the things he had. And so what we realized is that she had put him on a special diet because she was making sure he stayed healthy. And I'll tell you, some of the vegetables he was eating, I don't blame him, okay. He was not allowed on the furniture anymore, okay, and so there were a lot of different rules set in place.
Now he's feeling resentful.
And he's feeling resentful, and so he did not like chewy things. So we literally had to go through the changes, and I convinced her to modify them back, some of them to modify them back to the original way she had been interacting with him, because he had become not aggressive but more aloof, and kind of like, leave me alone, I don't want to be around you, because a lot of his things had changed. He wasn't allowed on the sofa, and that was something he wanted to do. She said, well, I got new furniture and I don't want my dog on it. And I'm like, well, that's your business, but you've got to make accommodations. You can't just assume your dog's gonna curl up on a hardwood floor by your feet. So she did. She broke some of her own rules. She went back to some of her own ways. And she said, she messaged me, she said, Chewy is really happy. I bet Chewy likes his things now. And so we recognize that they when they see an opportunity to communicate, they're going to communicate. I had a very interesting dynamic one time. I went to a home in a very affluent neighborhood, and
in DFW.
Yes, DFW, okay. And the whole ideology behind it was, we've got to make sure that these animals get along. Very, very, direct. Not that my pets get along, but these animals get along. And the dog is just not acting right. Okay. Well, okay, let's see what we can do. So I don't always make house calls because, one, I mean, there's only 24 hours in a day. And
also, you better be getting some more scratch for that.
Exactly. So I did show up at this house, and I came in the door. The housekeeper let me in. The owners were still upstairs. They were coming down in a minute or two. So I came in the door and I walked through the living area, and I saw a cat. A cat was up on top of a cabinet, and it was a beautiful black cat, probably about 2 years old, not very old, beautiful cat. And I kid you not, it's the first time I've ever heard this. This is another one of those aha moments. I heard bonjour. And I thought, what?
What?
And I said, bonjour. I said, and I kid you not, I said, you speak French? And I heard, oui. And I thought, okay, now you can imagine the wheels in my head are going crazy, because I'm a true believer in universal language, which means that if I'm dealing with someone who speaks German in the here and now, in the afterlife, it's translated so I understand it, right?
Yes,
so the universal language, it's energy. So here I have a cat, and I know we're all thinking, a cat? But this cat has a French connection somehow. This pet was literally from a shelter. The child in the home had picked out this cat from the shelter. So there wasn't a lot of understanding or knowledge about what the cat had been through at 2 years old, up to 2. But I said to the cat, you must speak to me in English so I can understand you. I don't speak enough French to be able to. And the cat jumped off from the cabinet and just, walked over to me, kind of sniffed at me, and then went under the chair. And I thought, oh, it's okay. You don't need to be under the chair. What are you doing? Which was, I need to find a nice place to sit because something's happening. So I wondered what was happening. And then all of a sudden I heard, boom, 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 and this gorgeous, this well-maintained, probably just come from the groomers, for the 10th time this month, or that month. this beautiful Labradoodle, and they are gorgeous dogs. Beautiful Labradoodle. They look like very large, golden-looking poodle. They're beautiful.
Very
And
expensive.
they're very expensive. And what I heard was, here I am, here I am.
No.
Here I am.
Oh my God. So you have this elegant,
Yes.
cultured
Yes.
cat. Oh my God.
Yes. And
I love
kid
that.
you not, this is one of my classics that I always, when I teach, I talk about this because it's so interesting to me. You know, we have so many preconceived notions of things, right? You know, I was expecting him to walk in, you know, pouncing like the best, you know, breed ever, you know, and instead he sounded like, you know, what is it, Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, or Scooby-Doo himself, right? And just kept bounding in. No, you know, no manners, no nothing, you know. Well, he had eaten 2 pumpkin pies, so I guess he hadn't really really known that he wasn't supposed to be on the counters.
Oh Lord.
He's a big dog, okay?
Oh Lord.
So
Yeah.
I did have an opportunity, and I said, you need to slow down. And it was like, I said, no, we got to slow down. If we're going to talk, you need to sit and slow down. I need to understand you. So basically, this was a dog that didn't really know what to do. He didn't know what to do as a dog. He wasn't allowed outside at the house, even though there was a lot of windows and there was a backyard. But the owner didn't want to have to pick up poop in the backyard. So the windows were a beautiful viewing area for this dog to stare at a backyard. It was a tease. So
that's horrible.
So this dog could never go out the back door into the backyard because it was not acceptable. So this dog was always on a leash out front on a walk. Now, and you know, and no dog park. So this big dog with lots of energy, you know, they can be pretty sizable dogs. They're not small. They're mid-sized to a little larger. This dog was really getting only a walk on a leash, which I found out was about 6 feet long. Okay, so that's not a whole stretch there. Mm-hmm. And so this dog had an abundance of energy. Well, this dog also hadn't had a lot of communication. So I could tell that this dog had really kind of lacked social skills in an environment where you would have thought it was mandatory.
Wow.
But because it wasn't made to happen, it wasn't encouraged, the dog really didn't know its place. And so the long story short is that in the communication, the dog was very unfamiliar with how to behave. You know, when the dog was home, it ran around the house because it was the only time it wasn't, you know, basically, you know, captured by a leash. So it had no manners in the home. It was running up the stairs, down the stairs, to the counter, on the counters. And it's a big dog. So the cat was hiding, and the cat knew that this dog, which she probably at that point was calling some beast. You know,
right.
It
makes no sense.
Very refined cat. Is hiding under a chair because this beast is now bounding around, you know, in the living room the size of a horse in her view. So we were able to communicate, and part of it which really changed this dog is I said, this dog wants to go in the backyard, and I was told immediately no. I said, this dog needs to go in the backyard. And so they said, well, we'll walk him first to do his business, and then he could go in the backyard for, you know, a few minutes. I said, okay, well, it's better than nothing. Oh. And so that was a reasonable answer for that. The dog's mannerisms and behavior changed dramatically after about a month of doing that. It took a little while because the dog didn't know if that was time out, because it was unfamiliar with the backyard it had been staring at. It was unfamiliar territory. So even though the door got open, it was a little scary at first. But this dog would run out, after a while, run out and just roll, and just zoom around the fence line and would calm down and come back in. So we recognize through, again, we look at instincts because we want to be able to understand the animal. And in readings with people, we tend to avoid a lot of body language because we don't want to read the body language and miss some other information. But with animals, you've got to go with instincts, body language, how you connect through telepathic means, what they're going to share with you, what they're going to tell you. And all of those are intertwined. So you do have to pay attention to all of the cues and all of the things shared. I will tell you that the cat eventually learned how to relate to the dog. The dog had to learn not to run up to the cat, and the cat learned not to go hiding all the time. Being on a cupboard was a safety measure. Cats go up high when they feel threatened, or they go under something. And so, if you understand the behavioral patterns, it really helps you to sit with that animal and get feedback, to be able to understand the feedback.
Because it's not like they'll know themselves enough to articulate to you what any of this means. So really, we're just trying to get as much as we can at one time.
Exactly. And again, the information we get is purely intuitive as far as the communication, the conversation. It's intuitive, it's telepathic. So it's not as if we've got a person sitting across from us that we are, bringing in information based on the way they're sitting or the way that they're appearing. So it is a pure read. It's real interesting working with the animals. I feel that anyone who is a pet owner has a responsibility to understand their pet better, to communicate. If you don't believe that animals can learn and to understand and can hear you, I strongly recommend that you do what I say, it's a little test study. Get 2 bowls. One says write treats on it, and one is outdoors or something like that, and put them in opposite ends of the room. And teach your dog that if he wants a treat, you have to be careful of that. I mean, make sure if you're giving treats, you're not giving them,
Carrots.
whole carrots, but just a little nugget of something. But that animal will learn to go to the basket of what it needs. And you can actually, with dogs, I always say, go ahead and give them a ball. Let them put the ball in the basket. So you're giving them something to do. You're giving them a job. You don't have the baskets there all the time either, because if you're not home, it's kind of counterproductive.
That's confusing.
It's confusing. So it's just a way for you to learn that you can communicate with your pets. You can, there's so many different things out there now. I mean, I mentioned something that you probably have in your house, 2 little bowls or 2 little baskets, and just designate which each one means. You see these online, you see those on Amazon, you name it, how to communicate with your pet through keyboards and through, little signs that little plastic things that you can use with bean bags. There's a lot of different measures. But I strongly recommend, if you haven't communicated with your animals, today is a wonderful day to begin that process. It's really not difficult.
Well, with the like cats and anything really, I guess, where do you think that they sort of, because I guess one fear I'll share, like for myself, where it's one of the reasons I own cats is because I'm not home very often. You and I, we both work all the time.
Absolutely.
And I never felt that it would be fair for me to have a dog given that lifestyle.
Right.
But also at the same time, you do worry, how do you fulfill the needs of this living animal that realistically, if you're living in an apartment, which the majority of us and the majority of our next generations might be, it is a challenging. I mean, I have 2 for that reason, realistically, because I wanted them to have company. But it is hard to know and to have them articulate, hey, I'm bored, or like, hey, and then furthermore, one thing that hits my soul when you talk about these behavior changes that are really quite monumental, it's like you can be doing it poorly. Like your animal could be functionally depressed because you got new furniture and now they can't, and suddenly something has changed. And it's like, to me, who I love my animals and I care a lot about where they're at in their head, you would not think that would be true. We're not taught to think, oh, our animals, because of our own decisions and our own lack of understanding their needs, could experience fundamental, true emotional duress and upset in the same ways that we would if we were told, you can't sit on the furniture anymore. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And first and foremost, my dear, you are a lovely parent to your kitty cats.
Thank you.
And the fact of the matter, for you to even ask that question or to say that concern tells me that you're a great mom to these wonderful
Thank
kitties.
you.
More than anything, it's really just if you have pets, most of us that have pets love our pets. I mean, it's just plain and simple. I know there's scenarios where all of a sudden now you end up with your son's dog or your daughter's three rabbits or whatever it may be, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I went from an empty nest now to a house of the animal kingdom. So some people do get in scenarios and situations where they're really not prepared, nor do they really want to be. They're not focused enough to do that, or it's just something they don't thrive to be a good parent to these wonderful pets. Again, some of it, and I'm very, very kind and gentle when I say some of it is just common sense. If you're going to totally change your cat's diet, expect there to be a little bit of an uproar. Our domesticated animals are very ritualistic. They expect certain things. Okay, if you feed them at 9 in the morning, then at 9 in the morning they're looking at the bowl. Now they don't have a stopwatch or a wristwatch, but they instinctively know because their bellies are telling them, "Hey, I know this is food time." So if all of a sudden you decide nine isn't going to work for you, that noon is much better. Well, get ready for about 3 hours of misery for quite a while, because your say we'll say cat, for instance, your cat's going to be very displeased. And I'll be the first one to hear it if I'm around your cat. It's like, no food. That's what I'll hear is no food.
Oh,
no
that's
food.
funny.
No food. And I've heard that before. And I'm like, did you change meal times? And I always hear, I did, because I have to leave for work earlier. So what happens then is they get the food too early, and their mealtime is no food. So it's not like, oh gosh, I got fed at 7 a.m. It's that I don't have any food at 9. That's when I usually get fed. Do you see? So again, they're coming at it from a 2 or 3 year old perspective. So it's not like this parent of this animal is neglectful. It's just they're not being aware. They're not being aware that there is really, again, a little person in that little cat body. That there is an energy that needs a little bit of understanding as to why. So if you're going to change your pet's diet, let them know. Let them know. Show it to them first. Let them get excited about it. Give it to them as a treat through the day. Ask them if they want a treat. Throw a couple pieces so it looks like it's more of a treat. So they get used to it instead of just finding it in their bowl for them to stare at and go, what is this? What is this? Yeah. Mommy doesn't put my treats in the bowl. My daddy doesn't put my treats in the bowl. What are these?
Well, I always know, but again, they're mine. I feel, I've never done the work that you do with the animals. And so really the only experience I have is just with my cats. But they're, I'm around them so much. So we have a deeper understanding. I think that sounds so crazy. I'm a crazy cat lady through and through. I don't care. I will be till I die.
That's good. And I'm going to say something along with what you just mentioned a moment ago. You said that you worry because you're working all the time and you're gone. And I know that you are, because I know you quite well. And you have a very busy lifestyle, very busy at work, and a lot of things that you're either teaching or just at, working your full-time job. So you're the typical busy person, and you're a little bit more so. You're gone a little more so. But you mentioned how much you love your pets. And I do know that when you are home, you are fully engaged in their needs in the way they react to you. When you come home, you're not off in another room watching TV by yourself with the door shut. So when you're home, when mommy's home, you're fully engaged in their lives.
And they feel okay with it?
And they feel okay with it. So you're actually giving them more attention than some people that are stay-at-home moms and dads.
Oh, well, I try. One thing, and I think I'll do this for my kids, obviously, too, but with the cats, I'm going to be busy. My rule from when he was little was if he ever articulated that he wanted my attention, I would drop everything and give it in that moment, so that over time they would just come to trust, and they'd come tell me when they needed me. Right. And now they both do it. And so it's so easy because I'll be posted up in my bed because I get off my feet, when I get home, and then they kind of just let me know what they need. And it makes me feel lazy sometimes because I'm not up and playing with them. But I think that they know, at least they know, hey, if they want anything. I mean, he started cuddling with me out of nowhere when he turned 2. So now he'll just come up and let me know, and he'll lay down. And the other one's starting to get more cuddly as he gets older and chills out. And so I don't do a lot of the ball talk. I mean, and I know that sometimes they want that from me, but also times I'll be in my bath and be like, I can't, guys, I'm sorry, I'm tired,
Well, and that's okay. And you're communicating that. The most important thing to realize, and for the listeners out there, we're not asking you to all of a sudden set up daycare for your pet. We're simply suggesting to you that if you have extra time in your day, think about modifying your way of reacting to your animal. Um, Pets need love, they need care, they need socialization, they need playtime, they need all the things that we would need as we are growing up into who we are. An adult dog, for instance, adult cat, again, just because now they're no longer playful kittens and puppies, they still need to play and they still need that time with you to share. And they may not be as fast or as, adept at, catching the ball or catching the frisbee or bringing that mouse back to you, hopefully that play mouse and no real mouse. Um, we realize that they still need that type of interaction. One thing also that I've had, I had two Boston Terriers. Well, actually, I had one of the Boston Terriers. Um, and I want to share this with you because we forget this. Oftentimes, we get really busy in life and we have to board our pets and we bring them to the vets because we trust our vet. I mean, if they're doing the vaccinations with this person, then hopefully we're actually bringing them, overnight, and that we would feel comfortable if we chose to. Um, I had this circumstance where I had this little Boston Terrier that was brought to me, and the woman said, "I don't know what's wrong with my dog. He seems he seems depressed." And she seemed kind of surprised, like she wasn't sure that animals could get depressed, which I will tell you, they most definitely can. They most definitely can. And believe it or not, they make Prozac for animals too. Okay,
Oh, Lord,
so
have mercy.
they do. So we recognize that the animals have deeper emotions than sometimes we give them credit for. So I asked her to. She had the pup on in a carrier, brought him in, and I said, "Can I interact with your dog?" And she said, "Oh, absolutely." So I took him out, and the dog walked over to me, looked at me, and then turned around and gave me his butt and looked the other direction. And I said, "Okay, you're upset. I can tell. I know you're upset and you're a little moody." And I said, "I understand." And I kept hearing the word gone, gone. And I actually I like to sit in the floor when I'm working with animals because I don't want to, lord over them, some strangers
It's got to
standing
be
over them.
weird, yeah.
Yeah. So I like to sit in the floor if I can. If I'm in a situation or I put them wherever I am, I try to get eye level. And so I moved to where I was sitting and I sat in the front. I said, "Gone? Who's gone?" And the dog just kind of looked down, and I thought, "Oh, that's loss. That's very, symbolic in animals of loss. They're
To
either
look down?
to look down. They'll either they either just chewed up your shoes, or they are experiencing some type of loss, and they'll look down. It's that look of, I don't want to deal with this, or I'm in trouble now." And so I said, "Gone." And I said, "Gone." And I looked at the owner. I said, "Who's gone?" She looked at me for a moment, and she just she was a little puzzled too. And I said, "Okay, gone." And then I heard, "She's gone." So I said, "Okay." I said, "Do you have a brother or sister?" I said, and what I did is I said, "Doggy," because again, we're not going to go, "So tell me a little bit, have a seat on the sofa, let me get my
Right.
notebook." So it has to be in bite-sized language.
Oh,
And
man.
so I heard, "She's gone." So I looked at the owner and I said, "Okay, she's gone. This dog is mourning. This dog isn't just depressed. This dog is mourning. Tell me why I have a Boston Terrier," which I hadn't ever worked with a Boston Terrier. Such a cute little dog. I said, "Who's she?" And she said, "Oh my gosh, that was our other dog. She died." And I said,
I
"Okay,
knew you were going
yep."
to say,
And
oh,
so I
God.
said, "Okay, well, okay, thank you." And I kept after that. I said, "I'm sorry. She died. She's not with you." And I heard, "Gone" again.
Mm-mm.
And I said, "Not coming back, not coming back. It's okay." And then I could reach out to the dog. The dog would let me pet. So what I was trying to do is saying, it's okay. It's okay to release it. It's okay to release it. And it was like, no. And so I said, "Okay, there's more to this than meets the eye. Did this dog get to say goodbye to the other dog? Was the dog home to say goodbye?" And she
Oh, my
said,
gosh.
"No." I said, "Tell me what the scenario is so I can help this dog." What had happened is they had boarded both of them. and
Oh my
they were
gosh.
gone for 2 weeks. Okay. And they boarded them and they were not put in the same kennel. They were in separate little
Oh my
kennels.
gosh.
And when she went to pick them up, she had gone, she was out of the country for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. The girl ended up getting pneumonia and died.
Oh my God, I can't do this right now. Oh
So,
my
so
goodness.
what had happened, I know. So what had happened
Oh.
was this cute little male dog came home without his sister.
Oh my gosh. And just couldn't
And couldn't
understand.
understand. They kept thinking gone was like, kind of like, go get her. And what had
Yeah.
happened was this dog was under the impression that this sister, this other dog, was being punished, gone,
Oh no.
got rid of, gone, like no more. It
Because
wasn't
that's the
made
experience.
clear.
You're either in trouble or you're good. Because that's
Yes.
the nature of a pet. Oh no, my
And
God.
and so I could tell this dog that, that, and I called her by name, that she had passed. She died. She went over the bridge, went the Rainbow Bridge, and it's
Mm.
okay. She's okay. She's not here anymore. And so with animals, they'll pick certain words like gone. They either ran away, or they didn't come home, or they're no
And
longer
we use it
alive.
all gone. Something
Right.
all gone
All
with
gone.
food and stuff or treats,
Exactly. And so
Oh my God.
I had to get the owner involved into, okay, we need to boost this poor pup's behavior, because this dog thinks that you've got rid of his sister. Doesn't understand that she didn't come home because she passed. And just wants to know if she's like in another room, or is she in a
Mm.
car, or go get her at the vet. Where'd she go? So animals need a little bit of closure, just like people do. If you have two pets in a home and one of them passes, you must make sure the other one knows that they're gone and where they're gone. Some people say that's silly. I don't have to tell my pets all this stuff, but you do,
Yeah. Oh my
because
God.
it's the same thing if you had a companion that you lived with, and then one day you just
Y'all
looked
break
around
up.
and they were gone. Wouldn't you wonder where they would have been? Where are they? Are they outside? Are they in another room? Or did you rehome them? What did you do? And they will blame you because they have no other person to blame. So this
Oh.
pup turned his back to me to say, leave me alone. Had been doing the same to her. Wasn't affectionate anymore. Would sit and would purposely come to her, sit in front of her, and turn and face the other way. Now, it wasn't one of the another move that dogs will do is they will sit in front of you and scoot back, so they are kind of protecting you. They're
With
part
you.
of their
Yeah.
right. But this wasn't about this. This was about, I am clearly upset, and you're not doing anything,
And you're going to feel it.
and you're going to feel it. This
I have a
dog,
question. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
it took a couple months, but it did understand. She had to bring the collar out, and she
Oh.
thankfully she kept a few things, brought the collar out, so that this dog knew that this sister was not there, and that it was okay. She had died, and so it did work itself out, and the dog did kind of resume with confidence to the owner. It started being kind again back to the owner.
In situations where you do have that companionship built, like, I've made jokes before, and I say they're jokes, but I'm not sure. But, like with them,
Hmm.
the grieving process is so great with animals
Yes.
in my head.
Yes.
I've never lost an animal personally in that way. But it's like, in my head, I've always joked and said, they're like to go and get another animal right after the loss. Some people do that, some people don't. I have no judgment about it because I understand how painful
Mhm.
that really is. What is the response like that on the animal that, for instance, you don't want that animal to be lonely, you also don't want to be lonely, but it's got to be jarring for there to be a loss and then a replacement. So how,
Yes.
or is that, or do they like that? Is that a preferred way of doing it?
Well, that's a very, very good question. It does depend on the particular personality of the animal. Okay. Animals have personalities, as we've talked about,
Fair,
just
yeah,
like
yeah.
people. So that will vary quite a bit. But as a rule of thumb, when I see loss in a family dynamics like that, I recommend that they wait.
Mm-hmm.
Because what has to happen is there has to be a mourning period for not only the human, but for the pet, the other pet that's left behind. And usually that is about bringing out the leash, or keeping the food bowl out for a little while, just so that all of a sudden everything's not just whisked away. Okay. There has to be a kind of a stage of events. Now that maybe their favorite blanket's no longer there, Or maybe you choose to keep the favorite blanket because the two pets used to curl up together. So it's still comforting to the other pet, the one left behind. But I do recommend at some point integrating them back, integrating another pet with the one that is home, because I do feel that they will keep some of the same mannerisms. And not always. Again, they've got personality as well. It may be just someone they don't like. They'll get another, it's like, oh, great, you're my new sister. I don't like you. It may be something that they have to kind of work through. But I do recommend waiting a little bit. Absolutely.
And the last question I want to ask you, because this is just bumping around in my head. I mean, this has been the most amazing insight into all of this. I love it so much. I was curious about, when we get into the past life thing with each other, it does seem to be true that we will continue to spend time around certain cohorts of energy.
Yes.
Through lifetimes.
Absolutely.
In a period of time, for instance, this comes to my head a lot, but in the warrior classes, when a lot of your survival was based on horses, or your entire survival was based on dogs and the ability to, hear that there was someone around, right? So we really relied to survive on animals more so than we do now, for sure. Right. Do you ever see instances where, for instance, I know this is weird, but like with my cat, I've always just wondered, I'm like, did you one time save my life? Like, were you one time a seed for me? Like, and this is just because I love him, not because I feel that to be true. But do you think that happens, or is it more like they stay within their same kind of demographic of being, like same animals, same?
That's a really, really good question. I'm going to answer again. I can't give you 100%. You can't validate it, nor can I.
Right.
But what I'm going to say to you and suggest to you is that absolutely, I feel that they come from all different walks of life, all different situations of life. When they return and they incarnate, they can come back. I mean, a cat could have been a great warrior and come back. Again, are they, is it possible to jump species? Why not? I'm a little bit less sure about humans to animals and animals to humans, but why not? In a lot of ways, a soul's a soul, energy is energy. And so I'm going to answer that with I do feel that is very possible. Very, very cool. Possible. And, for me, because I'm obviously, I don't have any dogs with me. I've had dogs over the years. I love wolves. Wolves and I bond very, very well. And I've had amazing opportunities with spending a lot of time with wolves. But
over
I can't.
In Florida.
Oh, it's amazing. If you ever get a chance.
Remind me where you go.
Seacrest Reserve. It's just incredible. It's in Chipley. And it's Chipley, Florida. It's just phenomenal. Again, these are wolves that are brought to this particular center, when they're just tiny pups, for whatever reason, either their mother was killed or she passed or they, many different circumstances. And wolves, you've heard the term imprinting, and it's not just from Twilight, the movie. It's really the thing. A wolf will imprint on a person, and they have to do it at a very early stage in life. Otherwise, they will never be able to be trusted. Again, that's kind of the rule of thumb. But what they do is they take these pups and they basically carry them around with them. So the pup is imprinted, and the human is imprinted on the pup, because these dogs can't really go back in anyway, because at that age they'll never they won't survive. And you can't be loving to a pup and then send it off in a wild either, because it's going to go find a human, and the human's going to, obviously get afraid and it'll get shot. So there's a lot of reasons why you'll see these centers with animals. It's also to educate, but it's not like they're just picking wolves off the,
it's not Tiger King. It's
exactly.
not Wolf King.
Right. And so these are definitely wolves that needed their help. But they do imprint on humans at a very young age. So
what do they sound like to you when they talk to you? Are they really smart?
They're very intelligent. They're very intelligent.
Wow.
They're very they're guarded though. They're very kind, and they can be very guarded. They're when they it was just amazing. I wish I could have captured it on a video.
Maybe one day we'll go down there and we'll film it. That'd be amazing.
I would love it.
I'd love to just film a conversation you guys have.
Oh my God, it's incredible. I mean, we've had so many wonderful experiences, but this one time in particular, we were, my husband and I were there, and there were three wolves, and they were coming out of, they have like a boggy pond, kind of like when you see the boggy creek. And wolves love to get in the water, it cools them off, and they've got real thick fur. And again, they're not domesticated, they're just imprinted with humans. They still live in the wild and eat, wild with a fence
Right.
around.
They're left to their own devices.
They are, absolutely. And they're fed, chunks of meat, not puppy food. But they were coming out of this creek, and it was like slow motion. It was so surreal. These three massive wolves were walking towards us, coming from this wooded area from a creek. And you had to stand in such a way that you didn't lose your balance, because your legs were shaking, because they were so beautiful. And it was just the most incredible feeling I've ever had.
Did Brian get flustered?
He
Or
did.
was he intimidated?
He was,
oh.
well,
he's a big dude.
He's a big dude, and they were about as big as him.
Yeah.
Come up to his waist.
Ooh.
But to watch that majestical creature, three of them, come out of
Apex
this creek,
predator.
Yes, exactly, and saunter very methodically towards us, was the most incredible feeling one could ever imagine and have. And so I'm a firm believer that if you can do this, if you can go, sorry, my phone rang.
No, you're perfect.
If you can make the time, it is certainly worth. I recommend you do the private tours, because you can take your own people in, and you can spend quality time with these animals. In the groups, you can do that, but you've got 15 people in a group that you don't know. But going back to that instinct, that animal instinct, I can't obviously have a wolf here in my home, because again, there's rules, city rules and state rules about wildlife and as pets. But I will tell you that there are oftentimes the dogs that I'm around, I can feel it. I can feel some of that energy within them. And I had dogs throughout my childhood, and I had border collies as an adult until they aged out. And you could feel, again, some of the instincts of the wolf are in the domesticated animals, the dogs. It's still there. It's just been kind of mutated, but it's still in the dog, the canine world, even though the wolves are just slightly a little bit different in DNA. Right. But it's remarkable to communicate with the wolves, to communicate, Sterling, in all ways to animals. It's something that is so precious to me. Some people will tell me, I just can't do it. And I say, don't give up. If you ever wanted to really feel just an amazing accomplishment, just a feeling of love that you cannot put your finger on, you can't say this is how it feels, because it's just so immeasurable. Learn to communicate with animals. There's so many opportunities. There is a feline cat sanctuary in Wiley, Texas. No, you can't go and roll around with them, but you can go and you can sit with them, and you can witness them, and you can talk to them. There are so many opportunities. If I personally, and I'm going to throw this out, Sterling, out into the audience. Now, I'm not bashing zoos, okay? I don't want to do that, even though I'm not fond of them, okay? I'm not fond of them. I don't like concrete and metal barriers around animals. But again, I recognize that we want to teach, our young, we want to teach our children about the different types of animals in the sanctuaries, and how to be respectful, and et cetera, et cetera. But zoos are a little bit oppressive to me. I do struggle the times I've gone to zoos to communicate with the animals.
There's a lot of pain there.
There's a lot of pain there, and there's a lot of boredom. And it breaks my heart. I've seen some zoos do better at it than others. I don't want to bash any zoo, but the one in Fort Worth, Texas, seems to try real hard to make it a friendly environment for the different types of species, and I'm very grateful to that. But a confined wild animal, is just that. It's confined, and that's what I'll hear is like locked up, gone.
I can't do anything.
They don't, right. And so, and sometimes they will actually, if you talk to them and communicate with them, monkeys will be very curious most of the time. They'll come and communicate. But if you talk to some of the bigger felines, or even some of the elephants are extremely intelligent. You can tell they're frustrated, and they'll just look at you, and sometimes they'll just kind of, like an elephant will start making the sounds of frustration, like the loud sounds, like leave me alone. because there's no place for them to go. And they don't see humans as being,
Good.
Right. I mean, they see them as a food source because the person brings, and I don't mean to eat, but they bring them their meals.
Sometimes, though.
Yes. Well, sometimes that happens too. And so they know that they have to rely on the humans in order to receive any care and food. But oftentimes they're just frustrated. And I feel that. And I actually try to keep the communication a little bit shorter with animals that are confined, because it feels sometimes like I'm taunting them, and I don't want
I was gonna
that.
say, yeah. I mean, it's hard to, because you're about to walk out of there, so it's really hard to, like, with your head up.
Yep. So
That's hard. I mean, I get that.
I tend to compliment them. My goal
Yeah.
is I will compliment them. You are so beautiful, such a strong big boy, and you will see that they hear it. They get it. They recognize what you're trying to do, and it's so funny. Baboons are funny animals, funny animals. And it was so funny. We were looking at baboons, my son and I, one time, and again in an enclosure, and it was a glass enclosure, and I was going, oh, it's such a pretty boy, and just and it was like, and then it looked over at my son, and it went, and I said, it's okay to have two pretty boys, and it turned around and showed his butt to my son.
Oh my God. Because only one of us can receive affection here.
Exactly. So I was like, well, he just told you to kiss it. I'm sorry, but he's not wanting to communicate with both of us.
What do you, just out of curiosity, because we are the wolf and the bear, what are your thoughts on bears as far as how they sort of interact, interestingly, if you had to guess?
Well, again, I love the bear energy. I mean, my dear Sterling is a bear. My husband is a bear. I can't beat any of that. I mean, that's
fair. I forgot. Yeah, you've got quite a bit of bear energy in your life.
My husband has a bear tattoo.
What is Taylor,
on his,
if you don't mind me asking?
He is a raven, a raven and a crow, and also a little bit of wolf. He's got some very interesting spirit animals.
That is a very good mix.
Yes, and so I look at bears as being, again, they can be territorial, but they're more of the mindset of leave me alone. I will interact with you if I need to or want to. I'm very cordial and friendly when I do. I'm not asking for anything from you. I'm very independent. I can handle myself, but you don't mess with my friends or my family. You don't take from me, because if you do, I'm going to find a way to get you out of my way, out of my den, out of my woods, out of my place. So they're very loyal. They're very resourceful. They do need a lot of rest, and hence the hibernation. Of course, humans can't hibernate for months, unfortunately. I wish we could, huh?
Right.
But we recognize that then again, they're very, very loyal, and they are, there's a lot of independence. And they're also,
they're not pack animals.
They're not pack animals.
Yeah, they just do their own thing.
That's right. They do well when they have cubs to raise or they are with others, but they don't tend to live in packs. They don't congregate. They really don't. They don't interact with each other when hunting either. When I say hunting, I mean more of like the salmon and looking for fish. They're not out there, hunting down caribou typically. I don't know. There's a few grizzlies out there that might, but
they will come grab your stuff.
They sure will.
That's what's hilarious is they'll take a kill and they'll just lumber over and be like, "What are you doing about it?"
Yeah, exactly.
And the wolves are like nothing, or whoever is, they're like, "We'll just go over here."
Very resourceful.
They're kind of lazy in that way.
They are, but they're very resourceful. They're clever. They're very clever animals. And what's interesting is that there are several things that have been written about basically the inner workings of a bear and a wolf together in the wilds. They have forged a
they're
friendship.
symbiotic.
Yes, exactly.
Isn't that weird?
That's very interesting. And so we see that. I mean, it makes sense. The compatibility has been written about for years and years and years.
I'll need to read some of that. I did not know that, really.
Yes. And so it's again, I'm not surprised you're a bear. I knew that pretty soon into it. You feel very much of bear energy, and hopefully I feel a little bit like a wolf energy, because that's
very much so.
That's who I am.
I love it.
I love it too,
Terri. This is just the best, and I'm so glad. Thank you for working with my schedule this week, because I know it was kind of crazy.
Oh, no worries.
We'll be on time, which I'm excited about. I'll have this edited and done. But yeah, I just love you, and what an amazing conversation.
Absolutely. And again, folks, if you have a different opinion or secondary opinion, you can always leave a comment. Be kind. Kind comments get read, unkind comments get deleted. No, I'm just kidding. I don't delete any of them. I don't read them either. No. That's her job.
yes. But that is true. Respect first always.
Yes.
Love, then wisdom.
Yes. So,
but we do get back to, and also I will say, Terri, this is part of what she does. So again, I'll definitely make a place where people can reach out to you specifically about the animal communication, because I do expect, I would expect, after people realizing sort of how much consciousness there is, I could see people really wanting to have more understanding of what's going on in their home. So I'll make sure to link a lot of your stuff to get that going.
Absolutely. I've got to tell you one funny little story really quick about animal communication. This is early on in my career of working with animals. Again, we all make our mistakes and we all hopefully learn from them. But I had a client of mine, never met this person before, said, you've got to talk to my cat. You've got to help my cat. My cat needs your help. I said, bring the cat in. Don't tell me anymore. Let me sort through this. And I thought, okay, now you recognize we're in a crowded room. We're at a fair. Cats don't like a lot of sound. They get very anxious about noise and they want to hide. I said, you recognize I can't take this cat, one-on-one somewhere quiet. It has to be here and now. She said, no, that's fine. I need you to work with this cat. It's really, really important to me. So she literally just ran. I mean, she was at the door before I hung up practically. So I brought her back to where I was seated, and she had one of those very fine meshed fronts to her carrier, which was almost impossible to view. So I couldn't even really see the cat other than the outline. So I said, okay, what I would like to do is see if we can get this kitty cat to respond by coming out so I can hold the cat, or you can hold the cat. I said, we're going to have to hold tight because we know that this is a very crowded, noisy public area. This is probably not the best idea, but I can't see her. Not that I need to, but early on in this, it helps. And I was, I hadn't done a lot of animal communication at that time. I just loved it, and I just didn't have a lot of clients with it. And so, silly me, I opened the door. The cat didn't respond. Cat was hunkered in. And so, without thinking, I reached in to pet the kitty cat in the carrier. And the cat grabbed my arm and scratched my arm from my elbow all the way to the end of my fingers. And I pulled it out with like this. And my arm is bleeding, and I'm dabbing it, and I'm trying to keep calm because, okay, I've got a lot of people around me, and I'm not going to sit there and act up because the cat's going to get really freaked out as well. So I put the door back on, lock the door, and I said, is this standard behavior for this cat? This cat acts feral. She said it is. I said, what? She said, I caught this cat on my property. I've been trying to catch it for months, and I want it to be made into an indoor cat. So I need you to talk to it to help me to get it to go inside. That's not really my favorite client.
No, because there's an absence of logic.
There's an absence of logic. And so, yes, it was an absence of logic in my part. You really don't reach into a carrier.
You didn't know he was feral.
No, I had no idea.
That's different.
But again, I did it slowly. So like you can approach my hand or not approach my hand. But the cat saw that as basically probably what it felt like when she grabbed it and cornered it and put it in the carrier.
And now it doesn't know where it is. I mean, it had a home.
It had a home
somewhere.
Right. So feral cats are a little harder to work with, especially if you're trying to put them in your lap. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was my lesson learned. Don't reach into a carrier unless you know the circumstance.
Ask all the questions to the human. Yeah.
Yes,
oh my goodness.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, we have done it.
Oh my gosh, as Brutus would say, we have done it. Yes, I'm so excited. I'm so much looking forward to, well, I look forward to every day because every day is a good day, but I'm looking forward to, we've got a wonderful weekend coming up. We've got some beautiful weather. We've got a lot of opportunity to, I want to call it eat, drink, and socialize and get a little work done.
We got Easter.
We got Easter.
It's going to be amazing.
Yes. And for those that do or don't celebrate, the only thing I can say is make it special, whatever it is to you. Maybe a wonderful Sunday or maybe happy Easter. It's up to you. But we're going to have a lot of fun. That's our plan.
And also next week is this famous eclipse we've been talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Ironically, did you see the weather in Texas?
I haven't gone that far yet. Is it supposed to be clear?
No, I mean, like everyone's been talking about, it's supposed to be like dense cloud cover.
Oh, wow. That should be
So,
very
you know,
intense.
maybe that means we'll survive it. I'm just kidding.
Well, and there you go. Well, you know, one thing for sure, we will go dark.
Yep. Yeah, I forgot that's the thing. Yes, so we all expect to be here after the eclipse. I can't say that enough. You know, things will be okay.
Well, and
We
just
feel
in
that to be
case we're
true.
not, I'm doing an investigation the night before till 2 a.m., a paranormal investigation. I'm very excited about it. But just
Ooh,
in case,
interesting.
yeah, I know we don't make it from there, and I know we will. I'm eating a big pizza beforehand, just in case, because there's no calories on the other side, right? So
No, and if that's the end of it,
that's right.
that's the end of it.
I'm going out swinging. So yes.
All right, y'all. Well, we are going to close it down. I'm going to link all of our ways to get in touch with us
Yes.
down below, and we'll be seeing you guys again next week. New episodes every
Absolutely.
Friday.
Absolutely. If you have any questions, please do reach out. We would love to answer them.
Excellent. All right, Terri. See you next week. Actually, see you this Easter.
See you this
Couple
Easter.
days. I love you. I love you. I love you.
Too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.